So really your amp addiction, I could call it, is...
Started only about 10 years ago.
Okay, 10 years ago.
And it's all because of a guy named Vinod Chetur. Vinod...
It's your fault, Vinod.
Your fault. So Vinod is a very good friend of mine and colleague that I met, and this is a critical part of the whole story. Vinod is a very talented musician and business analyst, and I worked with him at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency on a project called LSTS, Laboratory Sample Tracking System. And this system would literally sample cow semen and all kinds of animal fluids, and basically these vets working for CFIA would go out in the field and sample these body fluids and put it through the system. And we literally designed this system, and I was the tester and he was the business analyst gathering the requirements. Anyway, so we hit it off, and he knows a lot about amps and music in general. He's actually a huge Santana fan.
Okay.
Huge. And
so am I, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
You would really like to meet this guy.
All right.
And so it was Vinod that saw me playing through Native Instruments Guitar Rig was the software. I think it's still an excellent piece of software. You can try the demo yourself. Mm-hmm. And I had a floor controller. It came with, it's called the Rig Control. So basically, very similar to this. It's basically the pedal board would connect to the computer. It's all right. It doesn't matter if it's in the screen. So anyways,
bunch of foot switches.
Yeah. So it was a bunch of foot switches. It would allow me, and then and it had a wah, so I could. And I thought that was the cat's ass. I thought this thing was the cat's ass, and Vinod, to his dismay, realized that I was playing through this digital rig. So he said, buddy, he said, you need to get back into tube amps. So I should mention that at some point I sold that Marshall a long time ago. I don't remember when that disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I just did not bother with amps at all. I was quite happy in my simple world. What you don't know, you don't miss, right?
Exactly. Well, now I look at your collection here and I see Fender, I see EVH, and I see Friedman. And Marshall, which is kind of a surprise to me because Marshall is kind of considered the standard of classic rock players. That and Mesa Boogie. I don't see any Mesa Boogie.
I've got a Mesa Boogie.
Mesa Boogie down here.
Mark IV, by the way, Lubinga, I should mention. Actually, I had a Marshall amp here very recently, and I traded it with my guitar tech, Mike Tessier.
Okay.
So I've gone through countless Marshall amps, and so Friedman is essentially. So I've got the main food groups. So you're wondering why there's no Marshall? Well, Friedman is a Marshall circuit on steroids, basically. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, Vinod. It's all because Vinod. So I ended up getting this Fender Hot Rod Deluxe on his, not so much his advice, but he let's say he gave me his blessing. It was a solid starting tube amp. And so this is truly, that was my first real tube amp.
Okay.
So, because the Marshall was not a true tube amp, because it was a hybrid. This was my first true tubes in the preamp, tube in the power amp.
And do you find there's a big difference between full tube amp and
I really
hybrid
do.
Or just
over time? There's no question. I find hybrid amps just don't sound as good.
And
period.
Is the trick turning on?
It's the tubes. The tubes add warmth.
But you have to turn them on. When I play my tube amp, I turn it on a half an hour. I try to turn it on half hour before I start playing, so I warm everything up. Do you think that's
a half hour is total overkill?
Okay.
All you need is about, I believe it's like 60 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. You just need it to turn on so the cathodes kind of light up and the electrons start flowing. Half hour is total overkill.
Okay.
That's for sure. A couple minutes, absolute max, and others would argue that turning it off and on actually causes more strain on the life of the tubes. So there's a lot of people that don't like standby switches. Okay. And you can read countless threads on just that alone. Us guitar gearheads are very anal about details like this. So it all started really, and that's what this interview is all about. is the 107 amps that I've purchased and owned. And it all started with a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. This is post-divorce, so I should mention I went through a brutal divorce, lost my lovely house in Chelsea, my little palace on the hill, and I moved into my bachelor pad, which was a pretty awesome bachelor pad, 3 bedrooms to myself. I had young kids underneath me who would party all the time, so I could make all the noise in the world. But actually, I should mention, before the kids moved in, there was a guy who had medical problems, and me and him did not get along well. Poor guy, he had heart problems, and his medical problems didn't jive well with my passion for music. I had a digital drum kit, and even though it was digital, the pounding of my foot drove this guy bananas. He even called the cops on me once.
No.
I eventually, I'm not proud of this, but I drove him out. He literally moved out because he couldn't handle living under me. So that's when these young guys moved in, and these guys were wild. They would, man, oh my Lord, they had girls in and out of that place. I swear to God, I think they were having orgies underneath and cranking the music. And so it was great for me. I could crank my amps. I never bothered them. They liked me, and we got along great.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that's how it all started. The Fender Hot Rod Deluxe.
And that roughly about 10 years ago. And then from the Fender Hot...
the pedals started too. The pedal insanity started right at the same time as the amp. I immediately bought a whole crap load of Boss pedals. I had the Boss Bassman pedal, the Boss Blues Driver, I had a Boss Digital Delay, and it all just went downhill from there.
So how many pedals would you say you had in your lifetime?
Easily over 200. Really? Without even like questioning, without a doubt. At least 200, probably closer to about 300 pedals.
I think we should be talking to A&E about my strange addiction. So pedals.
A&D?
Yeah, A&E, the TV channel.
Oh, right.
My strange addiction to guitar pedals.
Mine or yours?
Yours. I've owned 2 pedals in my life.
Well, actually, truth be told, I'm far more addicted to amps than I am pedals.
Okay.
Way more. I find amps far more fascinating, and I've always been a fan. I've always kind of believed that you should get your grinded distortion from the amp itself. And so this is the other wormhole discussion that we can get into, right?
So I believe that AC/DC follows your
Plexis cranked.
Exactly. They don't use any. As far as I can tell, they've never used much pedals.
No. Angus's secret to his tone was the wireless. I forgot what it's called. He used a wireless unit, which was this huge thing, and that actually had its own gain in the box, and that was a big part of Angus's secret to his tone. Just so you know, was his wireless, and they've replicated that. It's called the Schaefer Replica.
Really?
It costs about $1,000, and it adds that special sauce. And now the makers of the Schaefer Replica have now replicated that into a pedal format. It's called the Storm, I believe, the Schaefer Storm, and that's on my shopping list.
All right.
Yeah. So pedals.
Okay, go on with pedals. What would you consider the essential pedals if you had to buy, say, 4 pedals?
4 pedals?
Which would you buy?
Well, if your amp doesn't have reverb, number 1, you gotta have reverb. Absolutely must. Unless you live in a church, most of us don't live in a church. We live in small confines like this. You're gonna want to add some depth to your tone, so you need reverb. I'm a huge fan of delay. Real, sorry, but most of us love delay, okay? Most guitarists I know use delay.
So a reverb pedal than a delay?
Reverb, well, like I said, if your amp doesn't have reverb built in, most amps do, but many amps don't. Any classic Bassman, Tweed, or Marshall circuit will not have reverb built in. So reverb, delay, and you need a distortion / overdrive pedal, for sure. And I would say if I could only have 4 pedals, my 4th pedal would probably be a modulation of some sort, either a chorus or univibe pedal, really, or a phaser. something like that. Probably a phaser, actually. Out of all the modulation pedals, I found the phaser to be the most useful. I can get EVH, Pink Floyd tones, all kinds of stuff from the phaser.